UFC Vegas 44, Draftkings has released the salaries so we can take our first look. You can call me Kunith, let's make some money this week. The UFC is back, they gave us a week off, and now we have a really nice slate to break down with 13 fights. This is the first look, so we're going to go through the slate fighter by fighter, salary by salary, and talk about spots that we like and spots that we don't like. If you've been enjoying the content at all, please like and subscribe, that way I can bring more of this to you. At the top of the slate, you have Brendan Allen at 9,600. Brendan Allen was supposed to fight Brad Tavares, then Roman Dolidze. Both of those fights fell through. Now he's fighting Chris Curtis, who just made his UFC debut a few weeks ago. Allen is a massive favorite in this spot and should win, but at 9,600, it's difficult to get to. His clearest path to victory would be to use his wrestling and finish this fight on the ground, which I think he's very live to do. I could see him having success on the feet as well. He's shown much improved striking since his loss to Sean Strickland. And he's looking very comfortable, very confident when he's fighting at range. We saw that in his last fight against Punahele Soriano. I like Brendan Allen to win here, but 9,600 is too expensive, especially if this fight goes the distance, and if it largely plays out on the feet. Last thing I'll say about this, because I'm sure you're wondering, no, I don't like Chris Curtis this week at all. I don't think Chris Curtis has a shot this week. The Action Man did win us some money a few weeks ago, but I know that lightning doesn't strike the same place twice, so no Chris Curtis. The pick is Brendan Allen, but 9,600 seems a little too expensive. At 9,500, we have Alex Morono. He's fighting Mickey Gall, and right off the bat, I could tell you I don't like Alex Morono for this slate. 9,500 is a lot to pay for someone who's going to be at a height and reach disadvantage. He's proven to be really hittable in the past, and he's a bit of a generalist. He's a solid fighter and good at everything, but great at nothing. He doesn't have much power on the feet. Yes, he KO'd Cowboy, but Cowboy is a shell of his former self. He's not a big submission threat either, recording only one submission in the UFC against a then 38-year-old Josh Berkman. And he doesn't shoot for takedowns often, which is important because wrestling is rewarded heavily on DraftKings. If you remove his knockout win over Cowboy and look at his 6 wins, you'll find that half of the time he scores over 100 points, and the other half of the time he scores less than 75. So you would really be rolling the dice by playing Alex Morono this week, and that's not something that I'm looking to do. The pick for this fight is actually Mickey Gall, and we'll talk about him later on. At 9,400, we have Manel Kape. He's fighting Zhalgas Zhumagulov this week. Both of these fighters are 1-2 in the UFC, but not all records are created equal. Zhumagulov lost his first 2 UFC fights to Raulian Paiva and Amir Albazi, and picked up his first win over Jerome Rivera, who might be the worst fighter on the roster. On the other side, Manel Kape lost his UFC debut to Alex Pantoja, who just beat Brandon Royval and has 2 wins over the champ. He might be the best fighter in the division. He also lost to Matthew Nicolau in a split decision. Matthew Nicolau is making his way through the rankings now. We saw Kape get his first win in the UFC just a few months ago with a flying knee knockout in the first round over Ode Osborne. And this is the kind of stuff that we expected for him coming into the UFC, and I think that he's just starting to figure it out, and I think we see more of the same potentially against Zhumagulov. I like Manel Kape to win this fight. I like him to potentially finish this fight as well. Zhumagulov hasn't shown the greatest striking defense, and Manel Kape carries unusual power for the weight class. The price does scare me a little bit just because Manel Kape doesn't tend to throw a whole lot, but when he lands heavy. If you want to take a shot on Manel Kape, I think he's one of the better, more expensive options on this slate. The pick is Manel Kape. He's not the best play, he's not a must play, but he's a fine play. Jimmy Crute at 9,200 is the best play. He might end up being the highest owned fighter on this slate, but he's worth locking into your lineups. And that's not easy for me to say. He's fighting Jamal Hill, who I'm a big fan of. But we can't bet with our hearts, we gotta bet with our heads. Jimmy Crute has 2 losses in the UFC that are both pretty fluky. He gets caught with a quick choke against Misha Cirkunov, and he loses to Anthony Smith because his leg gave out after taking a low kick. He was having success in both of those fights, and even secured a takedown over Lionheart Smith on one leg. He's going to have an advantage in grappling and straight up physical strength in this spot. And a grappling heavy game plan not only plays to his strength, but it's also attacking the direct weakness of Jamal Hill. If Jimmy Crute secures even one takedown, I think the fight could be over right then and there, either by way of submission or just ground and pound because we know Crute's an absolute tank. Jamal Hill will have faster hands, but I don't see him sparking Crute with anything fight-ending. So the pick is Jimmy Crute. I think he's the best play of the slate, and if you've been watching, the best play in the slate always wins. Lock, lock, lock. Moving on at 9,100, we have Jake Matthews. He's fighting Jeremiah Wells, and I think a lot of people are going to be off of Matthews this week. I can see a lot of people playing Wells, who we'll talk about later, or just fading Jake Matthews entirely. I think he'll also be low owned because he doesn't seem that live for a finish, and he's clearly not the better striker in this matchup. He is a willing grappler though, and if he's able to secure some takedowns and tire out the more explosive Jeremiah Wells, he might be able to turn this slate on its head. If that's the case, he might be able to post a solid score. But it's hard for me to want to get here for really two reasons. One, Wells is extremely strong, so it's going to be hard to take him down. Two, he's fighting out of Renzo Gracie, Philly, the same place that Sean Brady trains out of, who just beat Matthews earlier this year. I don't like Jake Matthews in this spot, and the price doesn't really seem justified. The pick is Jeremiah Wells, who we'll talk about a little later. Next we have Cheyenne Vlismas. She's coming in at 9,000. She's stepping in on short notice to fight Mallory Martin. This fight will likely be low owned, so if you're playing some larger field tournaments and you feel like you need to get different, you can target this fight, and I think Cheyenne Vlismas is the clear and obvious choice. She has good output and solid cardio, but does tend to go to decisions. She's coming off a first round, first minute knockout win, so her confidence is probably through the roof. It's probably the biggest reason why she took this fight on short notice. The only concern I have with her is in the grappling department. She does have a few armbar finishes as an amateur, and that's the same technique that Mallory Martin was finished with in her last fight. But if you're watching this, you know how chaotic women's MMA can be on Draftkings, so it's really hard for me to get a read on this one. I won't be targeting this because I typically play single entry and 3-max, but if you feel like you need to get different, taking a shot on Cheyenne Vlismas may pay off. The pick is Cheyenne, but personally I'm not getting here. At 8,900 we have Leonardo Santos. He's fighting Clay Guida, and Leo Santos is clearly the better fighter. He's more technically sound, he carries bigger power in his hands, and he's probably the better grappler in this spot as well. He's also going to have a 5-inch advantage in height and a 5-inch advantage in reach. At 8,900, he looks like a great play if we expect him to go out there and knock out Clay Guida, but that doesn't happen. Guida has only been KO'd twice in his 57 professional fights. Clay is known for his legendary chin and cardio, and if he can make this fight ugly, that's probably the worst case scenario for Leo Santos. We saw in Santos' last fight against Grant Dawson that he was winning the fight, but ended up letting it get away from him, and he was knocked out in the last second of the final round and largely losing that third round altogether. He gassed, and that's what makes me nervous about playing him in this spot, but you can't discredit what he was doing prior to the third round. But Grant Dawson is a much tougher opponent than Clay Guida, which gives me some hope for Leo Santos that we can get back on track in this spot. And the last point that I'll make about this is the last time we saw Clay Guida, he lost to Marco Madsen. He basically lost the third round to a jab. No, he didn't get knocked out, but Mark Madsen was gassed in the third round, and we thought that was when Clay Guida was going to turn it on and maybe find himself on the right side of a decision or get a finish. But it didn't happen. Mark Madsen kept him at bay with his jab, and Mark Madsen doesn't have a longer reach than Leo Santos and will probably get boxed up by Leo Santos. That's what gives me confidence about playing Santos in this spot. I just think that the advantages that he has on the feet are going to be greater than the advantage that Clay Guida will have in cardio. Leo Santos is not a must play because of the durability of Clay Guida, but I do expect him to get the W. Alonzo Menafield is 8,700. He's fighting William Knight, and this is a must-target fight on DraftKings. Menafield might end up being the highest, if not one of the highest owned fighters on this slate, and William Knight's probably going to carry a decent amount of ownership as well. And that's because both of these guys are big, powerful punchers, very explosive, and are live for knockout finishes at just about any point in the fight. I think in this spot, William Knight is very unlucky to be fighting Alonzo Menafield now. If this was a few years ago, I think it's a different story. Menafield was one-dimensional, very green, and he didn't know how to effectively use his weapons. Now I think you're seeing an elite athlete developing into a more well-rounded mixed martial artist. He secured takedowns in his last 2 fights, and that was something that he was not doing before. And William Knight might have the worst takedown defense in the entire division. He was taken down by Da Un Jung 8 times by a simple trip takedown. So I could see Menafield going out there, getting a quick takedown and finishing this fight on the ground. Obviously, he could starch him with one punch as well, so that's what makes him a great DraftKings play. He can get it done with the grappling. He can get it done on the feet at any point in the fight. There's a lot of upside, and at 8,700, it seems like he's just too cheap. Alonzo Menafield is a great play, and I'm locking him in to my single entries, definitely. Dusko Todorovich is 8,600. For starters, he's going to be low-owned, so there's that. He's fighting Maki Pitolo, who at his price looks like a way better play if you were to target this fight. Dusko has just not looked good in the UFC. He won his debut against Daquan Townsend, who really isn't UFC caliber. But since then, he was KO'd in the first round against Puna Soriano and lost a decision to Greg Rodriguez. This kind of looks like do or die for Dusko. If he loses, he's definitely cut from the promotion, and if he wins and it doesn't look good, he's probably cut from the promotion. My biggest concern with Dusko is that he tends to keep his chin way high in the air whenever he's moving backward, and fighting somebody like Maki Pitolo, who carries solid power, that could really get you in trouble. What he does have going for him is that Maki Pitolo has terrible fight IQ and tends to put himself in bad situations. But again, Dusko does the same thing. I think this fight is won by the man who makes fewer mistakes on Saturday night, and at this point it's really hard to say who. The pick for now is Maki Pitolo. We'll talk about him later, but I'm not confident either way. Louis Smolka is 8,500. He's fighting Vince Morales, and this might be the first time in my life that I like Louis Smolka. DraftKings scoring rewards grapplers more often than not, and grappling looks like the clearest path to victory for Smolka. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights, but he's posted scores over 100 in all 3 of those wins. On the other side, you have Vince Morales, who will prefer to keep the fight standing. He was out-grappled by Domingo Pilardi just a few years back, and that's not a good look. I could see Smolka securing a lot of control time and eventually finding a submission. At 8,500, Louis Smolka looks like a great play. And he may not carry high ownership because, well, it's Louis Smolka. But I like him this week, and I'll have some exposure to him in my contests. The pick is Louis Smolka not only to win, but to score a whole lot of points as well. At 8,400, we have one half of the main event, Rob Font. I think this is going to be largely a striking battle. I know that Font likes to shoot for takedowns from time to time, but Jose Aldo has that legendary takedown defense, so I think we're going to be seeing a kickboxing match for the most part. I lean Font simply because of the output. He threw 183 strikes in a 5-round fight against Cody Garbrandt. To do that, you have to maintain a really solid pace throughout the entire bout, so that's impressive. I expect him to potentially double the output of Aldo and possibly stop him late, just like Petr Yan did. Font is as scrappy as they come, and if this turns into a dogfight, I think that favors him much more than it favors Jose Aldo. Typically, we look to stack the main event in cash games, but I don't think you need to do it on this slate. There's 13 fights, there's solid value elsewhere. You don't need to play both sides of this. The pick for me is Rob Font. That's what I have in my single entry. I don't have any Jose Aldo. At 8,300, we have Rafael Fazeev. He's fighting Brad Riddell. This is the co-main event, so expect both of these guys to carry pretty high ownership. I like watching Fazeev fight. I think he has some of the best striking in the division. He does tend to go to decision, but he has solid output that can score you a solid score on DraftKings. It's different with this mid-range salary. It's not the same as playing somebody priced over 9,000 who has to score over 100 points to make sense. If he goes out there and scores 75 to 85 points, he's really done enough. Money has been coming in on Fazeev, and I expect him to come in at high ownership, at least higher ownership than Brad Riddell. I personally don't think that I'm going to be playing him, though, because he is one-dimensional. While the striking is fun, he doesn't really shoot for takedowns all that often, which is something that Brad Riddell does with regularity. On top of that, Fazeev does tend to slow down a little bit toward the end of the fight. Brad Riddell is excellent at digging deep and finding ways to win. The pick for this fight is Brad Riddell. He's got the more diverse attack, and he's going to be a better value at his price. Chris Gritsmacker is at 8,200. He's fighting Claudio Puelles, and you know that I love to target this 8,200 to 8,000 range. I bet against Gritsmacker in his last fight. That was a mistake, but I think that I'm going to do it again. Grits has good cardio, and he throws a ton of strikes, but Like Fazeev, he's very one-dimensional. He doesn't have a single takedown in his UFC career, and he has no interest, really, on going to the ground. He has a few submission losses on his record, and against a strong grappler like Puelles, I think he's in trouble. On the other side, you have Claudio Puelles at 8,000, who has 10 takedowns in his last 3 fights, and has over 2 rounds of control time in his last 2 fights. I think this is going to be one-way traffic for El Nino. I think he's live for a submission here at 8,000. I love this price. The pick is Claudio Puelles, and I have him in my single entry. Brad Riddell at 7,900. Again, I like Riddell in this spot. He's fighting out of City Kickboxing, so you know that they're going to have a good game plan coming into this. Plus, he's going to be the fighter that has better cardio and better wrestling in this spot. And those are things that you can always rely on, especially when you're playing DraftKings. This could end up looking a lot like his fight with Drew Dober. Close on the feet, crazy pace, but he will consistently find ways to secure takedowns when he needs to, find ways to win the fight. I do expect Brad Riddell to come in at high ownership, not as high as Rafael Fazeev, but the pick for me again is Brad Riddell at 7,900. He looks like an excellent value. At 7,800 we have Jose Aldo. You can never count out Jose Aldo, but again, I do prefer Rob Font in this spot just because of the output. This fight opened as nearly a pick'em, and since then, Aldo has fallen to a slight underdog, which does seem fair. And again, I don't think that you need to stack this fight, even in cash games. I'm not going to be stacking this fight. I'm excited to watch Jose Aldo compete, but I'm not putting my money on him. I'm not interested in playing Vince Morales at 7,700. Again, I think Luis Smolka is not only going to win, but score big as well. Maki Pitolo is 7,600. I'll admit, I might be too high on Maki Pitolo. I picked him to win against Darren Stewart and against Julian Marquez. In both of those fights, he found ways to lose. He showed bad fight IQ in both of those spots, and that makes it difficult to trust him this time around. Am I going to make the same mistake thrice? Maybe. But I would never bet on Dusko, and I'm not going to start doing that now. Coconut Bombs at 7,600 seems like one of the better plays below 8,000 in my opinion, and I'll be getting to him in some of my lineups for sure. At 7,500, William Knight. I think he's going to have a decent amount of ownership. That number, whatever it is, say it's 30, I'm not going to be part of that number. No thank you. 7,400, I'm not playing Clay Guida either. I have no interest. 7,200, Mallory Martin. She might end up winning. Again, women's MMA is very chaotic. It's very hard to get a read on this fight either way. I'm staying away from it entirely. Jeremiah Wells looks like a smash at 7,100. Jake Matthews is a savvy veteran, but for the reasons I stated before, I like Jeremiah Wells this week. His physical strength, grappling, and team give him an advantage. Money has been coming in on Matthews, so maybe I'm reading this wrong, but Jeremiah Wells at 7,100 looks like one of the best plays on the slate, and I'll definitely have him in some of my lineups as well. Jamal Hill, I would love to play him this week. There's a lot of other fighters at light heavyweight that if he was matched up against, I would definitely play him, but against Jimmy Crute, he's one of the few that I'm not going to be betting against anytime soon. So I like Jimmy Crute in that spot, not playing any Jamal Hill. Zolga Zumagulov at 6,800, I'm not interested. Mickey Gall at 6,700, I'm very, very interested in playing Mickey Gall this week. Mickey Gall should have the grappling advantage in this fight. He has the advantages in height and reach. He also carries sneaky power. Alex Morono's pretty hittable, so he might be able to tag him with something big, initiate a clinch, find his way to his back, and really get to work from there. That's Mickey Gall's game, and I think we're going to see more of that this week as one of the lowest priced fighters on the slate. Hit him for us again. Lastly, Chris Curtis, no thank you. So that is the first look. We're going to be taking our final look later in the week. Please like, comment, subscribe. That way I can bring more of this to you.